Happy Wednesday. We are back in the Minor Prophets book of Hosea, taking a third look here. This is a book written, first of the 12 minor prophets, book written 700 years before Christ, written 200 years after the north and south has split, and written just before the northern tribes are marched off by the Assyrians. And it's an odd book because it's got this illustration in which the prophet is called to marry a woman who is promiscuous and is going to absolutely treat him like dirt. I was reflecting on the book of Hosea and reflecting on how little impetus there is to be a prophet, right? The prophet, priests, and kings. You want to be king, can't be king. You want to be a priest, can't be a priest. That prophet job is hard. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be prophets. It is a really hard job. But the book is illustrating in a powerful way, a scandalous way, a shocking way, God's unconditional love for us. And it's also illustrating how we treat God. We don't see that, but it is illustrating how we treat God. This marriage analogy sort of sets it up for all the different ways that you and I are like Gomer, turning our back on our husband to chase after other gods. So in chapter 11, we get a little bit of a shift of the analogy here. And it reminds me, a number of years ago, I was counseling a woman, older. She had an older son who was treating her horribly and taking advantage of her, taking her money, lying to her, just, in all kinds of different ways. And we'd been working on this for a while, and finally I said, that's it. That's it. You have to just change the locks, move him out, put his stuff in the driveway. You got to cut him off. You told him this was going to happen. You cannot continue to allow this to go on. And she said to me something that is very much like what God says in Hosea 11. She said, I'm sure you're right. That's probably the advice I would give to someone else, but this is my child. He was such a good baby. I taught him to walk. I can't do this. This is exactly the kind of language we find in the Hosea using God using in Hosea chapter 11, saying, Israel is my child. And it was such a good baby. And there was so much promise. And I taught her, literally, I taught Israel how to walk. I cannot move on. And so we get that powerful love of God. The book of Hosea is just all these different ways to try and smuggle this truth in of God's unconditional love for us and the way we treat him poorly. And so I want to hammer away at one other idea that I keep hammering away at from as we are at this inflection point in the year, and that is that we need to press on to know God. So I'm going to read you Hosea chapter 6, verse 3. Let us press on to know the Lord. So let us know, and then it repeats it. Let us press on to know the Lord. The word that's used here in the Hebrew is the word yada. And it is a word used in Genesis 4 where it says, Adam knew Eve and she conceived. So it's to know, like in a biblical sense, there's obviously a reference here being made to an intimacy that is going to lead to reproduction. And the point that gets made here is as the Bible talks about us knowing God, it's not simply knowing about God. It's not simply head knowledge, but it's to experience God. It's to know God. Jonathan Edwards, great 17th century American pastor, great Puritan leader and one of the architects of the Great Awakening. He said, you can know about honey. You can know that it tastes sweet, but that's altogether different than actually tasting honey. And so we are called to know this God that loves us with this kind of scandalous love. I want you to meditate to the extent that you and I more fully understand God's crazy love, right? There is there is freedom in having that freedom. There's freedom that comes in knowing God's grace in that way. So reflect on that. Have a good day.